Well, Montenegro is the scene set for the Boki Bay Coastal Race, but it has been a long journey from when this race started 5 weeks ago. Well, all of that racing means that the scores at the top puts Biotherm out of reach. It is second, third, fourth and fifth that are still to play for. Less than a point difference between Team Paprika and Team Holcim PRB. Who can find the best route around these corners? And it is a lot of corners. Pretty much a simple course, a square, a left-hand turn at each of the marks going round with 2 laps scheduled to run. Alagrande Mappe have got their timing wrong. They're out the back. Canada Ocean Racing Be Water Positive also being left in light winds. Paprika now with the acceleration, but the start here in Boki Bay, the best beginning to this Boki Bay coastal race, goes to Militia on the foils and charging away on that first leg.
Absolutely fantastic decision to get the head sail out early. They could class their speed and distance to the line because they were already at pace. Look how bow up they are in comparison to Paprika. Now Paprika are on the inside, they're sailing flatter. Militia looked as if they were just a little bit overcooked on that, and I think Paprika and Holcim now, which is where that duel is for second and third place.
Flying into the gear of foiling very, very quickly, because in the early hours of today, nobody thought that we would get the breeze that we are seeing here. It's not quite enough to fly consistently. We've seen Militia absolutely yee-hawing off that line, coming back down as they're starting to do now, and then coming back up again. If you can find the consistency of power in the breeze, the flight will be level and the speed will be there. It is not as fast as it looks to be flying along this first leg of the course with your bow up high into the sky, but dragging your tail through the water. And that is why Paprika and Team Holcim PRB are forging ahead. But now, can they turn at the mark? Paprika going for the inside. The inside line will line you up for the lead at the next mark, and Johan Rishom has stolen that. I don't think the Team Holcim PRB were fully in control of their boat when they came up to that turn, and they are now onto a very crucial section of this course.
And also we can see now on board Paprika, he's got his eyes fixed on a swivel because he's got boats coming from all angles. But he's got to stay on the inside, he's got to keep the pace, and he's got to time his jibe perfectly against Holcim PRB.
This is crucial. You can see them now on the right-hand side of your screen as we move that camera around. They came around that top mark, maybe only just, but in first place, but not being able to get the boat down and free from the breeze, potentially just a start of sailing. But if I had to bet on it, I think possibly just a little bit of an error on board. Now they go for the jibe, and this is make or break, because they have the entire fleet on their inside. They need speed, and it is not there. It is not a good jibe. Just clearing the ropes, potentially just a little bit of a problem. It's Alan Roberts also with her on that right-hand side as Frank Camas moves from one side of the boat now to the other, and you can see the damage done.
Well, inside line and the jibe. That jibe was critical. You saw Holcim PRB had to do a big duck down to help get that sail round cleanly because it wasn't clean. Even though they had someone on the foredeck helping pull it round. It's a shame we didn't see Paprika's jibe, but by the distance they've gained, that was a clean jibe.
The stack up now as we get into the approach for Mark II. Another left-hand turn. There we'll see the boats wind up to a closer angle to the breeze. With it comes the power and the speed as well, and a chance to foil away as we go back onto the long, reaching, straight drag race sections of this leg. A big question as we came down here on this section of the course was who was going to get that inside line, who was going to position themselves well enough to take that inside line but keep the speed. Team Holcim PRB went way wide and have suffered as a consequence. Biotherm, Team Militia tried to go even further than Paprika. We'll have to wait to see exactly what happened to this mark, because at the moment, the French boat with Johan Rishom on the right-hand side of your picture is starting to push ahead. Watch for the mark on the right-hand side. The yellow buoy is about to come into view. Team Paprika now coming up to that turn, and I think potentially they could just slip in front of Biotherm. Biotherm, Militia, the charge on the inside that looked so strong early on, but the angle now as the wind goes a little bit light forces them to sail slow. Team Holcim went for a moment, those boats were gaining on the inside.
And talking of not panicking, I think it's Rosalind Kuiper's team on Holcim PRB that have done a really good job. Yes, they had a bad jibe. Yes, they took it too wide, but they had a really strong angle to come back at a good pace. And that is where now the teamwork have to keep the boat speed as consistent as possible so that they don't do these wheelies that cost them forward motion.
When you can maybe think a little bit ahead. Okay, well, you know, we've just learned some lessons here about where the breeze is, where the breeze isn't, how it's going to twist around the course, but also catch your breath as well. Team Amala next to come round. They are at the moment in 7th place. We have got Canada Ocean Racing Be Water Positive ahead, just on the heels of Alagrande Mapping. And
the crew are actually still working quite hard because they're seeing the pressure come in and the boat will start to accelerate, and they've got to keep that ride height as they come up on their foils even so they don't do these wheelies. So there'll be a lot of comms going on, a lot of grinding and trimming, but also the driver is looking ahead at the next short leg.
It's going to be very difficult as well to plan ahead for this. You can see with Paprika Arkea thinking about what that breeze does. Look at how many sails they have got ready to be deployed. They've got that big head sail, the big black head sail, and looking at it right now, I'd say it's getting near the top of its range. I mean, in terms of angle to the breeze, in terms of the power, we've seen in some of those gusts the boat really leaning over. There's the skipper, there's the man that ultimately is making the decisions about what sails they use, how they use them, and so far the Arkea seem to be going, well, we could have a little bit of everything, so let's be ready. At the moment, they are doing pretty well. Team Wholesome PRB in the back of that shot, trying hard to push up. That is where the competition is. Biotherm at the moment are in 2nd place, wedged between Paprika Arkea and Team Wholesome PRB, but at Mark 3, Johan Rishom and Paprika Arkea leading here at the Boki Bay Coastal Race with Biotherm right on their stern as the boats go round. But crucially for Paprika Arkea, Team Wholesome PRB a good way behind. And look at that, the big dig for that inside line. Biotherm, Paul Mayer forcing the boat, stuffing the boat up higher than the breeze would allow, but just using the momentum of the cross to try and live there. Team Wholesome PRB also doing the same, trying to keep those sails clear. For Johan Rishom and Paprika Arkea, look at the front of their sail. It's set, it's solid, it's not flapping.
Then everybody's got no choice. If he gets it slightly wrong, there's everything to gain from everyone behind. But it's so interesting the way they rounded that last mark to stuff their bow high of the boat in front to try and get them into clean air, because there's so much dirt coming off these sails.
Through the breeze. We're pretty lucky, Milivoje, to have you with us, and we're going to keep bouncing into you as the course unfolds. But right now, let's stick with Paprika Arkea. Let's stick with this moment, because shortly they are going to be doing a tack, and I'm just seeing what appears to be Mariana Labateau out on the front of the boat here. So, Dee, a little bit of work needs to be done. Maybe it's just eyes forward.
Yeah, looking at that.
What's your take?
Looking at that, I think she is eyes forward, looking for the pressure on the water, looking for the angle to the next mark, and kind of calling that ley line. You know, her expertise is Olympic sailing. She's a match racing champion. She's also sailed these boats around the world, so she kind of gets the feeling of the perfect line into the next mark. She's checking that they're not going to go into a wind shadow or get a lull. They want to tack in the pressure line so they can maintain speed to that mark.
Back to Paprika Arkea in 1st place with that tack. And I think Johan Rishom happy to drag everybody beyond the point, maybe, that you could tack to be efficient, further than they needed to, so that they can roar into this mark with full power. It is always dangerous when you tack these boats in the lighter breeze that you just get stuck where the wind is. That is why we're seeing not complete furls of those head sails. And in the background, I mean, talk about furling a head sail. Biotherm, that was a beautiful tack. They just need to get that power on and get it underway. Johan Rishom and Paprika Arkea, so far, it's clean. Look at Biotherm. I said they needed to get it on, and they have just been a bit slower. A grin as big as a harbour, because he is stretching out in the lead. He has found just the right place to tack. In the background, very deep against the shoreline of the city, is Team Wholesome PRB. That is their only rival, really, in this race. Paprika Arkea came into this competition in 2nd place, but they needed to finish ahead of Team Wholesome PRB. We had some questions. We were doubtful as to whether they had tacked in the best place. I think they were going for a bit of a wild card option, and it hasn't played out for them. They have just had to do the first of their extra 2 turns. They're sailing with a smaller head sail, so the turns are a little bit easier to execute, but they have lost distance, a lot of distance now, to Team Malizia.
You know, we can see here a mistake is so costly. Allegrande Mappe went early, they tried something different. They've changed head sails because they can't do multiple tacks with that massive head sail. It's a killer for the crew.
The fleet are starting to stretch out now. On board, we can see Mariana Labateau just sitting on that left-hand side, controlling the head sail on that yellow line. Corentin Haru just joining on the winch in the middle, the head of their design team.
And then they've got this key jibe again. And we could see, if you get that jibe wrong, if the execution isn't clean, the boat behind does a clean one and can make the gains. On board Biotherm, they're already thinking, okay, when we do the jibe, we've got to get this right, because there is an opportunity.
Well, Team Holcim PRB going over the top of Milizia, and you can see the damage here that will happen if you are on this reach and a boat takes your breeze. I mean, they have left Boris Herman for dust. I have no idea how on earth Team Holcim PRB good.
I think we've actually seen a little bit of a rotation in the wind, because we went on that first lap, we had a midway jibe along between Mark 1 and 2, and this time they've all gone for the early jibe, so we've seen that rotation. And what allowed Paul Meyer and his team to come inside was the fact that they had the inside line and the fact it was an early jibe. They positioned themselves perfectly to take advantage of that, and now Patrick Arkea have got work to do, and that is so exciting that there's that opportunity. Now if they stay on the inside, they're going to keep that lane on the reach, and then it's all about that final critical tack up the other end. Oh my God, I did not expect this to come out of this race today.
Biotherm rounding Mark II, now in the lead, having snatched it away from the French team, Patrick Arkea, as we got onto that short downwind leg. Paul Meyer yet again finding himself in the lead and pushing away from the fleet. Can Johan Richomme and Patrick Arkea turn their fortunes around and retake it?
Well, it was interesting there listening to the local knowledge, the way the wind at the top of the course is very different to the wind at the bottom of the course. We saw there'd been a rotation, so it was all about knowing it was an early jibe, but I think Paul Meyer was set up for that ahead of Johan Richomme. So he got the inside line. So now it's about recognizing what's happening at the top end of the course. If there's a bit more breeze, if there's another shift in the wind, that timing of where to tack is going to slightly change. And they're looking out ahead, making that decision of where we're going to go. You can see Johan Richomme communicating constantly, and you know Mariana's sat to leeward, having the conversation of, you know, we're trimmed on, we're upwind, we've got to make the tack clean, we've got to have a really good manoeuvre.
And what a difference when you see the two skippers here side by side. I've seen Paul Meyer just glance behind once. I keep seeing Johan Richomme glancing behind him, because behind Patrick Arkea is Team Holcim PRB. That is the boat that he is racing against. For Paul Meyer, oh, I'm in the lead. You know what? This feels pretty familiar to me. I'm quite happy out here.
To not do the big long leg with just one tack, they've got to take a different route. They can't follow Patrick Arkea and gain, so they've got to try something different. So they're going to do multiple tacks, and to do that they need a smaller sail, otherwise they're going to kill each other. But that choice of making a sail change is so costly. As we've just seen, they basically had to do a big dial down, a big stop, get it away, and now they're going again.
Put money on it. Paul Meyer has been dominant in the offshore section of the Ocean Race Europe 2025. And of course, here he is leading, heading into the finish line in Boki Bay.
Following, so it was the right call. And actually with the wind shift that we saw, a more direct upwind route with the small sail is a good thing.
Celebrations on board Biotherm. They already knew that the overall trophy for the Ocean Race Europe 2025 was theirs after their incredible performance in 5 offshore legs of this competition. But what a way to wrap it up. A win in the Boki Bay Coastal Race, a hard-fought victory, a lead that they had to steal from Patrick Arkea, but they have held it all the way across the finish line. Really, that psychological support for so many of the sailors. He's the person that you could talk to. He's been riding along with these sailors. That's why he's an important part of this moment. Paul Meyer and the crew on board Biotherm, including all the shore crew on the side, all the families that have sacrificed for this moment, and all the crew members that couldn't be here today. This is their victory in the Ocean Race Europe 2025.
Well, I'm really happy because, you know, this last race, like, it's just symbolizing what we lived during 2 months. And you know, ranking was done, but all the crew gave all their energy, and it's like we are really happy to sail together. And you know, it's like a dream. You know, for me, before the race, it was already done, so I was okay about this race. I don't care. But this morning, you feel like, you know, you're nervous. And I saw the crew that it's not finished yet. We're still angry.
That's a really, really, really nice moment. So celebrating in style here, the crew of Biotherm. Paul Mayer in the middle of the champagne bottle, well and truly open and down. And the flares are off lit here.